Alright, so this is the garden. Back in the day, probably when I was, I don't know, I guess like 8, 10 years old, something like that. My parents, well, my family, right? My parents, my brother and we used to garden. The garden was probably, I would say, close to 4 times the size, maybe a little bit bigger even. And last year it didn't happen. It was really difficult tilling the soil for this season, and the year before that, and I think one other year, it was decent. But gardening has always been a bit of an experiment for me, just because I don't really know what I'm doing, right? Like I said, when I was 8, I was gardening. My parents more or less kind of just followed the directions on packages and spaced everything out and, did whatever. So, just a little introduction here. I got some of my smaller pepper plants, whatever's left of them anyway. They just never really grow all that well. I've also got some romaine lettuce here. I basically just took some leftover pieces from what I got at the store and started growing them inside, and it was an experiment. We've also got some. Where's the other one? I don't know if you guys can see this. So we've got what I believe is butternut squash. I kind of grew that by accident. I was hoping that it was cantaloupe because it looks very similar. That is one thing you will find out as you garden. For anybody who's interested, especially if you're an amateur, you will make mistakes. You will plant the wrong thing. You will try to grow things that just aren't meant to be. We've got tomatoes. Tomato plants are actually pretty decent. My parents really wanted those, so they put those in. They also got some other pepper plants because mine weren't the greatest. However, again, pepper plants, they're a decent size. Don't get me wrong. Hand size, it's probably like 16 inches or whatever. Probably like, 2 feet maybe? No. Yeah, probably 2 feet. I don't know, I'm just guessing here for size. But they're basically stunted. They're not growing all that well. So I've also got these massive, I don't know if you guys can actually tell how big these are, but they are absolutely massive. Absolutely massive. Now, one of them is zucchini, 100%. The second one has gotten me very confused because I thought they were both pumpkin. Now this thing, I'm gonna try not to stab myself on all this stuff. Like that's the size of my hand. That's massive. We've also got some beets. So the beets, however, have a little bit of I don't know if it's some sort of like disease or whatever it's on it, or maybe some bugs that are chewing at it. They're the only ones that really look this bad. But yeah, this is just basically giving you guys an update. I do want to go over some weeding, because people get nervous trying new things, right? Pull out a weed there. I actually, someone I was dating actually, had mentioned that they were becoming a vegetarian, except they didn't want to garden. They don't like bugs. And I just thought, well, if you're wanting to become a vegetarian, you should know how to, garden, grow your own vegetables, so you don't have to rely on grocery stores. And a great way to actually start your garden. By the way, these are green beans, I believe. These are green beans plants, I believe. These are doing pretty decently. Those ones are a first time in this garden anyway. But yeah, you should know how to tend to stuff. This is cucumber. That is an awesome looking, soon to be pickle. And this plant, again, Some of these, I'm not entirely sure. It's a little ball there. There's multiple ones. I'm not entirely sure what these things are going to end up being because we're experimenting a lot. And some of the seeds are actually mislabeled. So, which, again, I mean, it's a hobby garden, basically. You know, I do like the idea of being self-sustainable and, you know, living off a little bit of the garden. It's not 100% doable to be sustainable off a garden this small anyway. Now, for some of you, you're probably going to wonder, you know, am I going to give you tips on how to garden? And well, yes I am. I'm going to relay all the information that I know to you guys, and that's going to involve not letting your garden do this. This is all weeds. All weeds. We've got some corn here, which is actually growing pretty well. This is a first at this new garden. We used to grow it all the time at the old house. We do have some potatoes. My shadow's kind of in the way here. Here, come around the other side. So that is potatoes. Potato plants, just a few. 2 years ago, I guess, when we had the really good garden, about half the garden, about 50% of it, pretty darn close anyway, was potatoes. And yeah, it's just, the garden is pretty big. I've also got a bathtub and a composter bin. The composter bin, unfortunately, has just been overrun with raspberries, and the bathtub has radishes in it, which we've already actually had some. I had one, you know, just picked it. I think so. Once they get to about an inch big, basically you pick them, and you know, you can use them in a salad or whatever you want.